Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some very fun battles in the Open Ultra League featuring the anti-aircraft Pokemon itself, XL Barbaracle. XL Barbaracle is a rock and water type Pokemon with the moveset of Fury Cutter, Cross Chop, and Stone Edge. And while it is definitely more of a pick for Spice than for climbing, it is incredibly effective at destroying just about any flying type that you can see. So I tested it out, ran it for 3 sets, and actually went positive. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and make some flying types sad with XL Barbaracle. Hopping into the first match, picking up a terrible lead Trevenant into Charizard. I save switch into Regirock, and my opponent is going to respond with Trevenant. I need to bait out Trevenant so Barbaracle is not going to see it in the endgame, but on top of that, my opponent was a little slow to the switch, and that gives me the potential to actually flip switch here. Because if I can flip switch, Barbaracle is an absolute nightmare for Charizard to deal with. So I'm going to farm up and fire off the Stone Edge just before they make it to the Seed Bomb. Stone Edge is going to get the shield, my opponent trying to keep switch, but with this energy lead, Regirock, as long as I match shields, should just be able to take swap from my opponent. So I'm going to farm up and again fire off the Stone Edge just before they make it to the Seed Bomb. Is my opponent willing to give up the final shield? They are not. In the back, they have Shadow Wall Rain. I'm firing off the Stone Edge here. This will hit for a ton of damage, so my opponent is forced to give up the final shield. At this point, I can basically just use the Trevenant to soak energy and finish the game with XL Barbaracle. They're going to fire off the Icicle Spear. That's totally fine by me. I just have to watch for the switch. In comes the Charizard, and now it is Barbaracle time. It doesn't matter what they throw. They can go Blast Burn. They can go Dragon Claw. We tank it like it's nothing. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We're met with a great lead in the next match, Trevenant into Cobalion. My opponent is going to save switch into Giratina Altered, and since I don't have a hard counter response, I'm going to stay in with the Trevenant, get some chip damage with Shadow Claws, grab a shield with the Seed Bomb bait, and now that I've gotten some chip damage, I can send in Regirock, as Regirock should be able to KO with 2 Stone Edges now that I've gotten some chip damage. This Giratina does have a lot of energy, so they're going to spam out Dragon Claw after Dragon Claw, chipping away at Regirock's health. But the good news is, Regirock is extremely tanky, so I will be able to absorb this damage. I'm able to land Stone Edge number 1. I will need to make it to another Stone Edge to get the KO. Again, this Giratina just has so much energy though. They go for a Dragon Claw, and they make another. I will be able to tank this, but not super comfortably. They go for the Dragon Claw, looking to farm up as much energy as possible and go for the Stone Edge. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to live the double kicks to make it to an Earthquake. Opponent commits the shield, trying to take switch advantage, but Regirock is too spammy, making it to the Stone Edge, winning switch advantage and both shields. Back in comes Cobalion. I'm going to send in Trevenant, farming up. In the back is Mandibuzz. Barbaracle destroys this thing, and the opponent concedes the match. We see same leads again in the next match, Trevenant into Cobalion. My opponent is going to save switch into Giratina, so it looks like this opponent is running an extremely similar team to the last opponent. But this time, they're going to fire off a charge move when they get it. It's the Ancient Power there, hoping for the boost, but thankfully they do not get it. I'm going to be firing off a Seed Bomb bait, grabbing a shield, and then bringing in Regirock. I've now got it into a range where 2 Stone Edges will be lethal, and I should be in a pretty nice spot to absorb energy. Opponent again really trying for that Ancient Power boost, as Ancient Power boost is basically what they would need to flip this, but that's not going to happen. I'm able to land the Stone Edge, so I should be in a pretty okay spot here with Regirock. They're firing off yet another Ancient Power, really trying for that boost. I'm farming up a ton of energy. They send back in Cobalion, but I did not throw the Stone Edge, so I can fire off the Earthquake. Earthquake is going to connect, farming up here, making it to Earthquake number 2, and this will be lethal. Decision time for the opponent. Are they going to shield? Yes, they are, and I can just pivot back into the Trevenant. I can let this go. I do tank a Stone Edge here. They do go for the Stone Edge, and now I can farm up, fire off the Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball will be lethal. I do have a bit of an energy head start. Unfortunately, I have basically no HP, and it's another Mandibuzz in the back, so I can send in Barbaracle, and Barbaracle should be in a pretty good spot here to KO the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz goes for foul play. That's not going to deal a lot of damage. I continue to farm. Opponent sends in Tina. They have energy. That's actually not good, as I have to waste an entire Stone Edge here, and on top of that, I just took a solid amount of damage from that Dragon Claw, so now suddenly, this may not be a winning position. I fire off the Stone Edge into the Mana Buzz. This is going to hit for massive damage, but I think I need a catch to win. Farm it up with Barbaracle, and we get the catch onto the Regirock. Let's go. Opponent goes for the undercharge on the foul play, but they undercharge too much, and they concede the match. Moving into the next match, we see a very positive lead, Trevenant into Virizion. My opponent is going to save switch into Registeel, and this is honestly a bit tricky. My opponent is core broken by Trevenant, but the unfortunate thing is the first two Pokemon that I've seen do very well against my backline. So honestly, I'm not in a very comfortable spot here. So I land a Shadow Ball, I'm going to let the Zap Cannon through onto my Trevenant, and now I'm going to send in Regirock. Regirock will be hit with the Focus Blast, but honestly, I don't mind this too much because I have nothing to hit the Virizion with, so I don't mind the Registeel being able to get me low. I will fire off the Earthquake here. Earthquake is, of course, going to be lethal, and now this sets up my opponent for a massive farm down with Virizion, and they know that everything I throw will be resisted. So this is a moment where I do wish that I wasn't running Legacy Earthquake, and I was running Focus Blast, so I'd actually have something to hit the Virizion with. I make it to a second Stone Edge, that's going to connect, but my Trevenant has taken damage, so a Stone Edge onto the Trevenant will not quite KO, but it will get me deep into the red. I farm up with the Trevenant. I am quite worried about a Stone Edge, so I commit the shield, and they're running Leaf Blade in the back. They have Aurorus, and I send in Barbaracle. Barbaracle farming up and going for the cross chop. This is double super effective damage, but it does not get same type attack bonus, so Aurorus is able to hang on and survive the cross chop. Aurorus goes for the Meteor Beam. That deals massive damage, and now their attack is boosted. I fire off the cross chop on the CMP tie to the Weather Ball. Unfortunately, this Weather Ball is boosted, so even though it's resisted, I do kind of need to commit the shield here. So I will commit my final shield and farm up with Barbaracle. Barbaracle firing off the cross chop just before they make it to their next move. This cross chop will be lethal. Opponent leaving it all up to Virizion. I send in the Trevenant, and I'm going for the bait. My hope is that I can double Seed Bomb and get it into a range where a cross chop will KO. They're going to have to fire off double Leaf Blade here. Leaf Blade number 1, not going to KO, and I do make the Seed Bomb. Okay, so this will put it into cross chop range. Now the question is, okay, they're forced to throw. How close are they to another Leaf Blade here? I send in Barbaracle, and we get outpaced. Virizion able to hang on with a sliver of HP and get the KO with the Sacred Sword. We see a terrible lead in the next match, Trevenant into Pidgeot. The good news is I do have two way better responses in the back, so I will immediately save switch into Regirock. My opponent is staying in here, so you know what? I'm just going straight for the Stone Edge. I threw it on alignment, but honestly, I want the damage or to grab a shield. And I'm able to get the damage, and that works for me because this puts it into one Seed Bomb range for Trevenant later in the match. My opponent is going to go for the debuff and now send in Jellicent, and this is a thoroughly miserable spot for Regirock to be in. This is already not a great matchup, and now that my attack's been lowered by 2 stages, this is just absolutely miserable for Regirock. The good news is our timers are desynced, so I can potentially try and go for a catch. So I am going to fire off the Stone Edge here. That's going to connect. I'm going to farm up and then switch into Trevenant to catch a Surf. This way I can save a Stone Edge on my Regirock for later, and I can waste some of their energy. I'll be honest, at this point I had lost count, wasn't sure where they were at. I commit the shield, they go for the Surf, that is really unfortunate, and now they send in Pidgeot. But now, a Seed Bomb is actually going to grab a shield for my opponent here, because they let that Stone Edge through from earlier. I'm going to farm up. They have to go for a Brave Bird here, as Feather Dance is not going to KO. They do go for the Brave Bird, but now that their defense is lowered, I can send in Barbaracle and Fury Cutter all the way down. Let's go. We'll have to see what they have in the back. It's a Shadow Charizard, and this game is over, as Barbaracle is going to be able to clean up nicely. Stone Edge is going to grab a shield from the Shadow Charizard. I can tank whatever they throw here, so I'm going to let this go. This opponent is running Overheat on the Charizard. We tank it, no problem, and now it's Stone Edge time. This is going to easily one-shot the Shadow Charizard. In comes the Jellicent, but we saved the Stone Edge on the Regirock from earlier. Debuff now reset, and Regirock gets the win. The tough leads continue in the next match, Trevenant into Galarian Wheezing. I'm going to farm up energy with the Trevenant, and then I am going to look to save switch into the Regirock. My opponent is going to switch out, and now they send in Swampert. The good news is I had to bait out the Swampert, so even though this is not a good matchup, I'm still happy with how the match is going so far. They will be able to make it to the double Hydro Cannons. I'm just going to let this through, as they're going to go for Hydro Cannon number 1, and they do make Hydro Cannon number 2 as well. But that's perfectly fine by me, as now this sets up an opportunity where I can look to massively overfarm on energy with Trevenant. So I'm going to wait my timer, send in the Trevenant, and then look to farm up to a Seed Bomb plus a Shadow Ball. As Seed Bomb, of course, will easily KO the Swampert, and I leave with a Shadow Ball that can apply a lot of pressure onto the Galarian Wheezing. Opponent is going to send in Galarian Wheezing, and that's not CMP. They went for the extra, so I can Shadow Ball, grab a shield, switch into Barbaracle, and tank whatever they throw here. Opponent fires off an Overheat that's double resisted. Opponent not familiar with Barbaracle's typing, and in the back is Jellicent. Not the greatest matchup ever for Barbaracle, but I'm just going to start firing off Stone Edge. Stone Edge number 1 is able to connect, and my guess is my opponent is going to go straight Surf here since I have 2 shields, and that's exactly what they're going to do. Due to Barbaracle's unique typing, Surf does only hit for neutral, which is quite nice. I'm firing off another Stone Edge, that's going to get them low. Farming up with Barbaracle, they let me get to a Cross Chop, and even though this is double resisted, this could pressure a shield. It does, and that is massive. They're forced to throw, and from here, I can just win the game with Trevenant. Surf's gonna KO, send in Trevenant, get the farm down, and the opponent resigns the match. We see the Dream Lead in the next match, Trevenant going up against Shadow Swampert. This is incredibly good. Opponent staying in with the Swampert. Oh no, they must be ABA weak to Trevenant, and if that's the case, Trev is about to absolutely feast. They Hydro Cannon, and they save switch into Cresselia, so they are extremely weak to Trevenant. I land the Shadow Ball, and I'm going to farm up a bunch of energy with the Trevenant, switch into the Regirock to catch the Moonblast. This way, I save energy on the Trevenant for dealing with that Swampert later. Unfortunately, the Moonblast is going to debuff my Regirock. I'm just looking to massively overfarm in this situation, as I can tank whatever they throw, even if it is the hard-hitting Future Sight. So I'm going to farm up to 100 energy and fire off the Stone Edge. Stone Edge is going to KO, and if they send back in the Swampert, which they do, I can start launching Earthquakes. Earthquake is going to connect onto the Swampert, as they're not going to commit the shield. Opponent looking for the farm down, and I make it to the Stone Edge. Is this going to be enough to KO? I am debuffed. It barely is not. They save it, and in the back, they have Shadow Charizard. Barbaracle should do quite well here, as of course, I do double resist the Blast Burn, so they're forced to go for the non-stab Dragon Claw. I'm able to grab the first shield with the Stone Edge, and I don't have to shield here. I tank whatever they throw. Opponent goes for the double resisted Blast Burn, and Barbaracle shakes it off like it's nothing. I can also no-shield this next move, because Dragon Claw is still not going to be enough to KO, and it's incredibly tough to try and farm down Barbaracle. Here, I decide to go for the bait, and I'm able to grab a shield. That is incredibly nice, and now I can just go for the Stone Edge onto the Charizard. So I'm farming up with Barbaracle, going for the Stone Edge, but a massive mistake. I throw on alignment, and that allows my opponent to catch. That is not good. I'm going to stay in with Barbaracle here, switch into the Trevenant, and get the snipe with the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball KOs as we survive the game. Hopping into the final match, and we see mirror leads Trevenant versus Trevenant. I do specifically run an attack-weighted Trevenant in the Ultra League, so I can win basically every CMP tie here. So I build up to the Shadow Ball, bait with the Seed Bomb, and unsurprisingly, I am able to win CMP. My bait is shielded, my opponent probably baiting back, but I'm still going to shield anyway because I know that I'm able to win CMP here. I'm going to farm up, go straight for the Shadow Ball. Opponent makes a nice catch, catching on a Charizard, basically anticipating that if I'm leading Trevenant, odds are I probably have really good counters to Charizard in the back. So the best use of Charizard is basically just as a damage sponge. I'm going to send in Regirock. Shadow Blast Burn hits and deals quite a lot of damage. I'm going to farm up and fire off the Stone Edge. I'm not far off Stone Edge number 2, which would put a lot of pressure onto the Trevenant. Trevenant is going to be forced to fire off the Seed Bomb here. Seed Bomb is going to land onto the Regirock. Regirock able to hang on and make it to the Stone Edge. But this will allow my opponent to commit a shield if they want to. fully farm down, and leave with quite a lot of energy. So I'm going to send in my own Trevenant, and I'm actually just going to let this through. They go for the Seed Bomb. That's not going to KO. I send in Barbaracle. Barbaracle, I don't think can quite farm down, so I believe I will have to throw a move onto the Trevenant. Opponent in the back. They have Wall Rain, and this game should be over as Barbaracle can tank an Earthquake here. So I should be in a very comfortable position. Farming up with Barbaracle. Opponent goes for the Icicle Spear, just trying to get any chip damage that they can, but by not committing to the Earthquake, this just means that I can double up on cross chops. So my opponent, unfortunately, even if they full sent the Quake there, I would have been able to tank it. But by not committing and just going for the Icicle Spears, I can double up on cross chops, have a move for the Wall Rain and the Trevenant, and that is a good game. All in all, I had a ton of fun making flying types have absolutely terrible days with XL Barbaracle. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is absolutely not a Pokemon I'd recommend for climbing. I did go positive with it, but I did end up getting some favorable matchups where there were flying types in the back. But if you are just looking to have some fun in the final week of Ultra League and to make Charizard have an absolutely terrible day, then Barbaracle is a pretty solid choice. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.